Washington Post that his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, wanted to set up a secret communications channel between the Trump transition team and the Kremlin. This morning, in an off-camera press briefing, National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster refused to comment on the specifics of the story. But he said he would not be concerned about having a back-channel communication system with Russia. Back with me are Evan Siegfried, Nayyera Haq, Malcolm Nance, and Jack Rice. I want to go back just for a minute before we get back into the Jared Kushner conversation, just to talk a little bit about what Donald Trump just did. Donald Trump just did a speech to U.S. troops that was about Donald Trump. It was about himself. It was about all the great things he feels that he did. This is a president who can't even spend a speech about the troops talking about the troops, Evan. If a Democratic president did this, I keep saying this to you, the Republican media establishment and political establishment would go insane.
We've already gone insane by not going insane. I think this president, I half expected him to say he invented Post-it notes in his little celebration there.
He did.
But I really don't understand why he's celebrating this trip when he upset Israel twice, both in the disclosure to Russia of the intelligence they weren't supposed to share, and then in the arms deal with Saudi Arabia, which Bibi Netanyahu was furious about. He then upset Angela Merkel. He upset...
the Germans were bad.
The Germans were very bad, very bad. But he upset the Montenegrin prime minister or president.
By shoving him.
Yes, and he lost the stamina for shoving today because he had to take a golf cart while all the other...
Well, he also body-checked Melania at one point. I mean, we'll show the video of that later. But go on, continue.
And he's upset key allies. We've had a row with Theresa May. What is going on? Our three closest allies in the world have been ticked off on this international trip by the president. And the president is going out and celebrating this as a success. I don't know what's going on.
You mentioned the Belgians. Was there something with the Belgians?
Oh,
off camera?
Apparently the president complained to the Belgian president, or prime minister, pardon me, about how it's very difficult in the EU to get permits to build golf courses. So that's really at the top of the national agenda.
I mean, Nayyera Haq, there has never been a presidency like this, obviously. But what Donald Trump is doing in his world tour, his big boy tour, he has made good friends with the Saudis. He's sort of loved up the Saudis and bigged them up, right? Taken their side in the Sunni-Shia sort of global struggle between these two, portions of Islam, these two sects of Islam. And he has angered every single one of our NATO allies, apparently. What can be done? I mean, I don't even know. I don't even have a question. That was just a thing.
Yeah, well, this is fact now, right? This is a fact, and this is a matter of American history now. This is not just a guy who gets to go out and have fun on TV or do what he thinks is the best for the picture, which could be shoving aside leaders of foreign countries so he can get in the front and show off on the red carpet. I mean, this has serious implications for U.S. national security, and even now our troops are feeling that. The fact that he has a pattern of behavior where in front of the CIA's fallen stars shortly after his inauguration, to this last speech in front of troops where he's talking about crowd size, to now his inability to be able to actually look people in the eye and understand and appreciate what their sacrifices have been for the United States, and instead focusing on his own business advantages.
And Jack, that has always been the risk and the reason that the emoluments clause keeps coming up when we talk about this president. Because the question of whether the most important thing to him are his business interests or the most important thing to him are the national interest of the United States and our national security is actually extant. You have to keep asking it because of the things he keeps doing, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's our problem. You can imagine him saying, enough about me. What do you think about me? I remember being on a FOB in Western Afghanistan with a soldier in the middle of the night. He'd made, I don't know, 14 tours at this point. And I'm sitting across from him, and you realize, and you look into his face, and you can realize all the sacrifices that he has made, everything that he has given up, how much he's missed his family, how he's never seen his children, how they're all being born while he's fighting in Iraq or someplace else. And I'm sitting across from this young man, and I think about Donald Trump right now, and what I imagine is this, is that for people in uniform who have sacrificed so much, who are selfless so much, who have given so much, this is a president who has no concept of what that means. The disconnect between who he is, what he is, and who these men and women are is maybe the most disgusting, and I've seen it all over the world, and I've seen it from men and women who protected me wherever I've been and done things for me, and yet, all he can talk about is Donald Trump. Enough about me. What do you think about me?
He also wanted a Purple Heart. He asked that poor guy who, at Walter Reed, he's like, how can I get one of those?
And congratulated him on getting the Purple Heart.
One quick question. Has the president ever talked about anybody else or shown concern for others?
I don't think so. I don't remember. If the speech was there, maybe somebody from the administration will send it over to us so we can play it before we're done. But Malcolm, the other piece of this is that you have a president of the United States who seems much more comfortable around autocrats than he does around small d Democrats, right? He's comfortable with the Saudis. He's happy with Duterte and praising him. He's comfortable with General Sisi of Egypt. He's comfortable with the leader of Turkey, who just made himself even more of an autocrat with these new rules, even reducing democracy there further. He's blatantly, visually, visibly uncomfortable with the Germans, uncomfortable with the Canadians, uncomfortable with, the leader, Mr. Macron, who was just elected in France with that weird handshake they were doing. I mean, can you conceive of why that could be? He's comfortable with Vladimir Putin.
Well, Vladimir Putin is a great influence on Donald Trump's life. I wrote that in my book, Plot to Hack America. Vladimir Putin views Donald Trump as an ally because he intends to establish a series of global autocracies, and and link the world through autocracy, not through the old communism that he was brought up with. Donald Trump never promised democracy in this election. If you go back, he's always promised autocracy, and in fact, I mean, you could argue that Jefferson, I'm going to leave the Civil War. You could argue that Donald Trump is the closest thing we've ever had to King George III. And they're very, very much alike. He doesn't seem to be conscious of the people of the United States, except for those people that brought him into office. And all he can do is go around the world and focus on himself and the goals that he views that are good for him. John Adams warned against that, against the president that would run the government like his own family business. We should take heed.
And also, essentially saying this is a stick-up to the members of NATO and saying we want more money. and essentially that is his attitude. But Evan, you showed me in your phone earlier in Axios piece that Donald Trump apparently, as all of the leaders of these great Western allied nations, there we are walking the streets, I believe of Sicily. Is that where they were, or of London maybe earlier? It was London earlier. Of Germany and Italy, right? That Donald Trump was in a golf cart. That he wasn't even walking with them.
He's sort of been probably exiled by the other G7 leaders.
They don't want to walk with him?
I don't think they want to walk with him, and I think they were glad he was in the golf cart. But it's a striking image of just the comic and tragic standing that we now have in the world because of the actions of this president.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, Nayyera, because if we are a country that is the object of ridicule, global ridicule, the headlines across Europe are scathing of Donald Trump, that isn't just something to sort of giggle at. The United States has we have a moral standing that has meant something in the world.
Well, and that's part of the challenge that we have as we deal with every single day. Something new and ridiculous pops up. Comedy and humor is a way to deal, is a way to not cry. But that's essentially what's happening to our standing in the world. And it undermines the American public in terms of the opportunity for economic trade, the opportunity for standing up for American values, for actually making sure that we have strategically have opportunities in places like Africa and Europe and the Middle East of peace building. Because if we don't have peace in these areas, it hits us back here at home.
Absolutely, and that's even when our standing has been based on sometimes our actions not being what they were supposed to be and not being authentic. The United States at least had certain ground level sort of base. Okay, everybody say, I know everybody has more things to say, so I'm keeping all of these guests